you have an internal hormone powerhouse that can energize you through menopause and beyond? Hi, I'm Denise Stegall, the Menopause Mentor. Welcome to today's episode of Healthy Living, Happy Life podcast. We're talking today about, let's see, sometimes it feels like we're on a hormonal roller coaster, right? During menopause. When I say during menopause, I really mean through perimenopause and through the menopause transition into post-menopause, because it's not a one-day occurrence. It's a long-term challenge. So some days you feel fine, right? You feel good, life is good. Others, oof, not so much. Here's the truth, though. It's not in your head. You're not just waking up going, oh, I don't feel good today. Oh, what's going on? No, your body's actually responding to powerful chemical shifts. These are biological changes that happen naturally to a woman. We know this. We've always known that at some point in our life, we're going to go through menopause. And now, ladies, if you are here, guess what? We're experiencing it. So my goal today is to help you decode some of the signals of these hormones so you can support your body instead of fighting it. Because I know a lot of days it feels like we're fighting our body or it's fighting us back. So perimenopause into menopause, this is not a smooth decline. It would be lovely if it was. If we just woke up one day and we're like, oh, I'm postmenopausal. Yeah, right, that would be nice, wouldn't it? But instead, we've got the roller coaster of the spikes and the dips and the loop-de-loops and the WTF is happening to my body, right? So what's going on? Estrogen and progesterone, the hormones we have always thought of as fertility hormones, those hormones to have babies, those are declining. Estrogen and progesterone are not only fertility hormones, these are hormones for life for women. What else is happening? Our testosterone is dropping. Yep, we have testosterone, not a lot, not as much, obviously, as men, but we do have testosterone, and it is really an important powerhouse hormone for us, and that is declining. Then, with estrogen and progesterone declining, this can actually spike our cortisol levels. And our cortisol is that flight or fight hormone that we have. So that can spike, and that can actually affect us in many different ways. For many of my clients, as we talk, it's one of the spike is really helping or causing them to struggle with sleep first and foremost. Insulin becomes harder to regulate. So these are your powerhouse hormones: estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, cortisol, and insulin. These can be a huge powerhouse. But right now it seems like the power is kind of declining and, we're on 50% rather than 100%. But we can fix that. Our body is basically right now doing its best with these new instructions, these new chemical reactions that are happening in our body, right? The key here is to work with what's happening, not against it. So, what are some of these annoying symptoms? And we talk about these very often, but I think it's important for us to reiterate them many times because so many of the symptoms of perimenopause can look like some other issue, health issue, specifically mood swings or low mood. Mood swings are one thing, we understand that, but this low mood, if we just kind of feel ho-hum on a regular basis, many times that is seen by doctors as either anxiety or depression. And yes, it could mimic that, but it's not the underlying cause. So yes, mood swings and that low mood. Belly fat that won't budge. You kind of woke up one morning, you had that tire around your waist, and you're going, where did that come from? That is because of a decline in estrogen. Sleep disruption. How many of you are waking up in the middle of the night and are wide awake? Mind's just going, not really thinking about anything in particular. Now, yes, stress can add to this. But what we find in menopause is either we have trouble falling asleep or we have trouble staying asleep. And then there's this low libido, like who wants sex anymore, right? Our body just doesn't feel it. It's just not happening. And along with that, the motivation's gone. It's just motivation for sex, but motivation to do things, like do the things we used to love to do, right? All of a sudden, we just don't have the excitement or the passion for it. This one is really frustrating. And this is something that when clients tell me they've been, oh, I've been on a diet, but in the afternoon, I have this, I have no energy and I have to get a coffee or I have to get, sugar cravings. I start craving sugar at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. This is actually all part of our powerhouse hormones quite working where we need them to be. So yeah, these things can, if it was just one of them, it would be okay. But more often than not, we're experiencing all of these at the same time. And so they're not annoying, right? They're life changing. They are affecting our lives in so many ways. But truly, this is what chemistry is saying. Your chemistry is talking to you, right? And once you see patterns, you can begin to support your body in a different way. So let's talk about this hormone dream team a little bit more in detail. So estrogen, always start with estrogen, right? That's our powerhouse. That's our multitasker. Sorry. Estrogen does so many things. We have estrogen receptors throughout our body. Every organ in our body has an estrogen receptor. So no wonder why when our estrogen starts to decline, our whole body starts to go bonkers and we don't feel like ourselves anymore. So it influences our mood, our metabolism. Hello, there's that belly fat. Our memory, muscle tone, brain function, joint health. Wow. Oh, and osteoporosis is bone density. Oh my gosh, lots and lots of things. Also, uh, vaginal wall, your vaginal lining becomes thinner. There's less lubrication, which in turn makes sex really uncomfortable, right? And so estrogen, like I said, estrogen has an effect on almost every aspect of our life and our body. So we need to figure out where we are with our estrogen levels. It's so important. Even though doctors don't necessarily believe in this, I think it's really important for us to understand where our hormone levels are. And if we're feeling all of these problems, more than likely our estrogen levels are just in the tank, and we need to work on that. Because on top of the things I already mentioned, estrogen actually calms inflammation. Inflammation is something that is really the root of so many diseases that we have today in the US and in kind of the modern world. And by decreasing inflammation, calming that inflammation, we can actually make sure that we're not adding fuel to the fire when it comes to those diseases. So obviously when estrogen is declining, we've got that belly fat, mood swings, all of these things, right? I just mentioned. There has been research in the last 10, maybe 20, maybe probably 20 years. It takes a long time for long-term research projects to get done, right? A project or a research plan that's 1 year, ooh, big deal. Who knows what happens? We want to know, a 20-year study, a 10-year study. So there was a research study that showed that bone density declines. Now we know bone density declines. I mentioned about that. An average of 2% per year during menopause. Now, again, menopause starts with perimenopause, right? And depending on how old you are or were when you started perimenopause, that can be a very long time. So think, they say the average age of the menopause day, that is the 1 day anniversary of 12 months not having a period, that is actually menopause, that one day. So say 10 years before, say you're 53 when you hit that menopause day. So say you started in perimenopause and at 43. So from 43 to 53, you've lost 10% of your bone density, mostly in your lumbar spine area, which is that lower part of your back. And this is how people have slips and falls, break hips, and have all sorts of issues that can absolutely be avoided. But now, knowing that bone density is an issue, this is something that you can get tested for. We talked about this in another episode about the DEXA scan. It takes 10 minutes. It's not a big deal. You go ask your doctor for it. They write you a prescription. And it's really important to know where you are, when it comes to bone density. If you're 53, well, I'm 54. If you're 54 and you already have declining bone loss, it'll show on that DEXA scan. And oh boy, let me tell you, if you see that, you're going to want to make some changes fast. Luckily for me, I know my diet. This is what I do for a living, right? So my diet's pretty dialed in. My exercise is dialed in. My weight training is dialed in. Sleep, some days are better than others. I have to say that's probably the one thing that I still struggle with through all of these years. And it ebbs and flows. Sometimes, some months I'm great. Some months I'm not sleeping as much as I need to at night. And so what happens is, yeah, maybe I need a nap at the end of the day for half an hour just for that extra energy. But it's nowhere near what it was when I started through menopause. Anyway, so estrogen has so many effects in our body. I specifically talked here about bone density because it really is something that we're not ever talked to by our doctors until we hit our 60s. Well, if you're in your 50s and you already have bone loss, waiting till you're 60, 65 is really when they start to recommend a DEXA scan. Wow, that's 15 years of bone loss that you could be actually fighting. So let's move on. Progesterone, our next powerhouse, dream team hormone, is your calm and sleep hormone. I just mentioned I have a little bit of sleep trouble. So progesterone is something that I need to pay attention to. When I do, progesterone is that like built-in chill pill, which apparently I do not have. I'm from New York. You can take the girl out of New York for 23 years, but somehow New York is still in the girl, and it's really hard for me to chill. So progesterone is something that I really pay attention to because it helps stabilize your mood, it reduces stress, and really supports that deep sleep. I take a progesterone supplement. I've been doing that for many years and it helps. Has it been perfect? No, nothing's perfect in life, but it's better. When your progesterone levels dip, another thing that I think is always interesting is you definitely feel more restless. Like part of it is because you're not sleeping, you might be a little antsy, but you get overly sensitive. This is not a time to sit and binge watch Hallmark movies because one, you'll go through the tissue box like crazy. But it's one of those things we really struggle with our emotions when our progesterone dips. And again, as I've mentioned many times, struggle with sleep. Here's an interesting piece of science that I didn't know until not all that long ago. And I think this is really interesting. Again, this dream team, they work together, they go together, and we need to really understand them for many reasons. But here's something that I think is really important for us to know when it comes to menopause and stress and progesterone and cortisol, which we'll talk about in a second. So here's where stress plays a role when it comes to these hormones. Under chronic stress, which is stress that we experience every day, and high stress, your body diverts pregnenolone. This is the raw material to progesterone. It takes it doesn't make progesterone, but it makes cortisol instead. This is actually called something, it's called the pregnenolone steal. So your body is basically stealing your progesterone to make cortisol. But we need the progesterone because we're not sleeping and we have mood problems and all of the things I just mentioned. So with less progesterone now, we're going to have more anxiety, more sleep disruption, and that emotional overwhelm that sends so many of us to the doctors kind of going, please help me, please help me. They often want to give us an antidepressant, but yet the bottom line is the underlying cause is our progesterone levels are dropping and could be getting stolen by cholesterol. What happens then, of course, with more cholesterol, and again, I'll talk more about cholesterol in a minute, but more fat storage, more inflammation, and more exhaustion. See how this all kind of works together, right? So there was a meta-analysis, which is basically a study of many studies that found that oral progesterone reduced sleep onset by 7 minutes compared to placebo. Now, granted, that doesn't sound like that's awesome, right? 7 minutes, I felt fall asleep 7 minutes faster. But in another clinical trial, they found that progesterone significantly helped to reduce hot flashes, night sweats, and improve our sleep quality. So, yeah, maybe we're falling asleep a little bit sooner by 7 minutes, who knows? But our sleep quality is improved. And this was these were results based on uh, a woman's baseline. So she was asked questions prior to this particular study. This was a clinical trial. She was asked to fill out a survey, and then at the end, she filled that survey out again, and that's how they got this the answers to this particular clinical trial. So progesterone, Dream Team member number 2. Let's go to Dream Team member number 3, testosterone. Woohoo, testosterone. This is your confidence and your drive hormone. Testosterone is not just for men. It fuels, for us women, drive, ambition, muscle tone, energy, and of course, libido. We know that, right? But think of these other things that are equally as important in our life: drive, ambition, muscle tone, energy. Wow. We don't have a huge amount of testosterone, obviously, compared to men. But what we do have, we really need to keep, or we need to support. Because when it drops, you're going to feel kind of unmotivated, obviously less interested in intimacy, which can affect our confidence, which can affect our relationships, our marriage. So many women in our marriages fall apart during this menopausal time because women are just not interested in sex anymore. And it's not because of their partner. Most of the time it may be, I don't know. But for the most part, they don't feel sexy. They don't feel confident. They just don't feel like they're in the mood. Right. So this is something that we really need to talk about and really understand the role in that testosterone plays in our body and in our life, and how it can enhance our life during menopause. So testosterone is interesting. You can't just get a prescription for testosterone if you go to your regular GP. It is something that is much more regulated, but there are ways that you can get it. Some people can, or some people will prescribe. Some doctors will just prescribe DHEA, and it is something that you can get over the counter. But if you really want to make sure that you're getting quality, you want to make sure that you're getting that from a doctor or from a clinician. They also have these transdermal patches. I've never been a fan of patches. Not really sure. I've heard a lot of negative things. I've heard a few good things. But if this is something that we need, hey, right? Each to each our own. But this, I love this study. It's kind of funny. This study of menopausal women was using this transdermal testosterone. They reported 2.1 sexually satisfying episodes per month versus zero point 0.7 with placebo. So I'm trying to figure out what is a 0.7 experience, but whatever. Essentially, what this study, the result of this study, or statistically, that was 1.4 more per month. So I guess, I don't know about the 0.4. It was kind of better, but it wasn't great. Let's see. But in a different study, this was actually only a 4-month study. So um, it may still be, this study may be going on still, but they looked at it at 4 months. This was a study of 500 women who were already on hormonal replacement therapy, or which is now very often called menopausal replacement therapy. This transdermal testosterone, again, it's that patch, improved different symptoms. Mood scores, cognition scores improved, libido improved, mood scores improved, cognition improved, your brain function improved, and libido improved in 52% of the women. That's pretty amazing. So this essentially tells us that testosterone is not just about intimacy, we need it for that, but it also supports our confidence, our motivation, and our mental clarity too. So yay, testosterone. So let's move on to number 4. Dream team, number 4, cortisol. This is our stress response hormone. We hear about cortisol all the time because we live in a world where we have these heightened emotions all the time, heightened stress all the time. You know, the TV's on all the time, social media, politics, all of the stuff. But you almost can't get away from it. I don't know how many people I have unfollowed, friends, people that I know, love, and trust, because they get too political. Really, on Facebook? Come on. You know, Facebook was intended to be able to connect with everybody and say hi. Can't we just say hi anymore? I digress. Anyway, so cortisol levels are elevated almost all the time, unless you know how to step back and gun that. But cortisol essentially, it's kind of like your built-in alarm system. Like, hello, something's going on. It helps you react to threats and keeps you going during emergencies, right? This is the proverbial, you know, back in the day in the Serengeti, if you were getting chased by a lion, you know, your cortisol levels would increase, you know, that stress hormone. So, you know, you could run faster, get out of the way. And of course, when your cortisol levels are high, things like digestion are not happening. Libido's not happening because you don't need those when you're running away from a lion. So it actually suppresses many of the things that are going on in our body naturally. So some of the other challenges we have, weight gain, more weight gain. I thought estrogen did that. Yep, it does, but so does cortisol. Then again, this affects our sleep even more than lack of progesterone because we're kind of wired and tired, right? You know, especially if you are not following a evening routine, a sleep routine, you know, turn the TV and the telephone, the cell phone, the social media, turn all of that off at least an hour before you go to bed. And I will tell you another thing that people don't think of is if you have an e-reader, you should not be reading an e-reader before you go to bed. It will keep you awake. It'll keep you from sleeping. It's going to keep that cortisol level high. And so what happens is we're not sleeping. We're wired. We're tired. You know, we've got this nervous energy and we're just exhausted all the time. Mood swings get worse, emotional reactivity. So we're reacting to situations instead of responding. And how does that affect us on a daily basis? We're snapping at our kids. We're snarky with our spouse. You know, we're at work and, you know, our decision making isn't clear, or, you know, we're just not getting work done as quickly as we normally would. Then there's the blood sugar instability, which we'll talk about in a minute with insulin. When your blood sugar is unstable, uh, that again, this leads to more weight gain. You're hungry, you get these cravings, and then of course hormonal balances, especially low in progesterone. Why? Because as I mentioned before, the pregnenolone steal, right? Your body is not making progesterone because it's making cortisol, sorry, because you're just at this heightened state all the time, this heightened state of stress. So there was a study, was in Seattle, the Seattle Midlife Women's Health Study. Ooh, try saying that 5 times fast. Researchers found that cortisol significantly increased in the late menopausal transition. So not so much during perimenopause, but as women started to get like into that menopausal year, and this actually increased, or women said that or reported that they had more severe hot flashes. Ooh, I don't know about you, but I don't want more hot flashes. If I'm be getting them all this time, and now because of cortisol, they're going to get worse. That's not good. So you can calm cortisol, rest, mindfulness, setting boundaries. I think this is something that we don't do enough. We talk about it. We talk about this a lot. If you're in business, you go to business programs, even at, wherever you work, they like make sure you know what your boundaries are. This is, when it comes to your calendar, block off time just for you. And then something comes up in that block time, you say, okay, fine, I'll do this then. And that's not giving us the time that we need to step back, sit back, relax, maybe do our deep breathing, do our meditation. Or how about this? Just sit and be for a few minutes. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Right? Instead of always having to feel like we're on. Um, we don't need to be on all the time. So yes, let's just step back. Another thing that I think is really important, and this is so classic of me, eat real food, right? If we're eating proper foods, if we're eating the foods that supply our body with the nutrition that it needs to work properly. Specifically, you want to have protein early in the day. I'm not a big fan of intermittent fasting because for lots of reasons. But here at Healthy Living with Denise, I don't do diets. I put intermittent fasting in with a diet. Now, if it's something that you do and you find it works for you, that is awesome. But it's not something that I encourage my clients to do. The last piece I'll say about cortisol is to go outside and spend some time in nature. Nature is calming. It has such a calming effect on our body, our mind, our psyche, our spirit, everything. All you need to do, step outside, go for a walk. I don't care if it's 80 degrees or it's 30 degrees. 10 minutes outside, especially in the morning, early in the morning, is going to change the way you feel, and it's going to make start the day on a very positive notion way. Let's see. Okay, so last one I'm going to talk about here today. Dream team member number 5. Excellent. Your body's blood sugar manager. Insulin essentially helps move glucose, sugar, from your blood into your cells, right? Your cells need glucose. It's the number one energy. That's what it wants. Your cells want glucose for energy. When it works well, energy is stable. Metabolism is working like a charm. But if insulin is triggered too often from sugary foods, constant snacking, lots of processed foods, your cells essentially stop listening. You're just sending them too much information, right? This is essentially insulin resistance, and it's behind belly fat, sugar cravings, your afternoon crashes, and weight gain despite doing everything right, right? You're eating a good diet. So you think you're exercising, you think you're doing all the right things. But, you had a donut for breakfast. Oh, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you kind of felt like you needed a candy bar and a cup of coffee. This is saying something. The sugar, your cells are just being flooded with so much inflammation and so much glucose that what happens is your pancreas, essentially, when you eat, your pancreas secretes insulin, and then that goes into your cells. If your cells are too full, it can't take all the extra. So what it does is it stores it as fat, and then the next thing is, we start to get, we get those cravings, and so we get cravings, and so we eat. And so we eat, maybe we eat something good. Maybe we have a turkey sandwich. Maybe we have, a bag of Doritos. Who knows? Maybe we have a soda with that. And then all of a sudden, the pancreas needs to secrete more insulin, but the cells are already full. And so what does it do? It stores everything as fat. And you can see this horrible cycle there, right? So let's see. There was a meta-analysis in 2024, so a year ago. 17 randomized trials found that hormone therapy. I really like hormone therapy. I'm not talking about it here. I do talk about it quite often, and I probably will have a new episode on HRT and BHRT, which is bioidentical hormone therapy. That the study showed that, or found that, hormone therapy significantly reduced insulin resistance in postmenopausal women. Now, keep in mind, menopause is that one day, your anniversary, where you have, for 12 months, you have not had a period, right? On that day, you are menopausal. That very next day, you are postmenopausal, right? If you started menopause earlier, menopause transition, I'm 54, I am 3 years postmenopause, right? So this is important for somebody like me to understand, right? So insulin resistance hormone therapy significantly reduced insulin resistance in postmenopausal women. Now, at 54, postmenopause, right? My life expectancy is like till 84. So that's another 30. And more than likely, if I continue to live my healthy lifestyle and thrive, not survive, into my 60s, 70s, and 80s. If I make it to 83, more than likely I'll make it to 93. That's a lot of years, right? So we need to make sure that we understand insulin resistance in postmenopause. Let's see, what else did I want to talk about that? I think that's all for now. I mean, insulin resistance can get really sticky. There's a lot involved. What I gave you today was a simple. I simplified, what insulin resistance actually is. So I'm going to close here. Here you have it, everybody. Those are your hormonal dream team: estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, cortisol, and insulin. Obviously, there are other hormones in our body, but these are the five. These are the top five that we really that are really working either for us or against us in menopause. These hormones are not your enemy. They are your messengers. Once you understand their language, you can support them in a way that restores your energy, your balance, your confidence, your libido. Hello. So if you're ready to take the next step, schedule a call with me. What we do is we'll have a call, and by following the Midlife Metabolic Flip Blueprint, which is something that I created, we'll actually go through and create a personalized plan that helps you to restore your energy, thrive in midlife and beyond on your terms. So thanks for joining me on today's episode of Healthy Living, Happy Life. Remember this: you're not doing anything wrong. Your body is simply shifting. And with the right tools, you can live the most vibrant, energetic, exciting chapter of your life. I'll see you next time. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Healthy Living, Happy Midlife. My hope is that today's conversation left you inspired, encouraged, and ready to take the next step toward creating a vibrant, fulfilling life that you deserve. Remember, you don't have to settle for fatigue, brain fog, or frustration. Midlife is not the end of your story. It's the doorway to your next best chapter. And I'm here to help you walk through it with energy, with confidence, and with joy. So if you're ready to take this journey further, I invite you to schedule a free strategy call with me. The link is in the show notes. And together we'll design a plan that works for you at this time in your life, for your body. So be sure to subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast platform. Catch the video version on YouTube so you never miss another episode. Share it with a friend who needs to hear that midlife can truly be the most powerful season of her life. Until next time, I'm Denise Stegall, reminding you that healthy living, happy midlife is just possible. It's yours for the